All right, let's talk about one of your body's most visible and, let's be honest, often confusing signals, flushing. You know the feeling, right? You're in a meeting, out with friends, maybe you're just relaxing at home, and then suddenly you feel that wave of heat, and you just know your face is turning bright red. So what is your body actually trying to tell you? Okay, so here's the deal. That flushing isn't a disease itself. It's a symptom, a signal. The best way to think about it is like a check engine light in your car. It's your body's way of saying, hey, you might want to look under the hood. So, our job today, we're going to learn how to read those signals together. First up, let's investigate the most common culprits. Because, for most people, the explanation behind a red face is actually pretty straightforward. Here we have the two heavy hitters. On one side, you've got the alcohol flush response. This is purely genetic, driven by a little quirk in an enzyme called ALDH2. When it doesn't work quite right, a toxic byproduct of alcohol called acetaldehyde builds up, and boom, you get that flush. On the other side, menopausal hot flashes. This one is all about hormones, specifically a drop in estrogen that just throws the body's internal thermostat completely out of whack. And the scale of this alcohol flush is just enormous. We're talking about 540 million people worldwide, mainly of East Asian descent, who carry this common genetic variant. It's not an allergy, by the way. Think of it more like a metabolic traffic jam happening inside your body. And menopausal hot flashes? Oh yeah, incredibly common. They affect up to 74% of perimenopausal women. So look, if your flushing fits into one of these two boxes, you're in very, very common company. But, sometimes the story isn't quite that simple. And if those common causes just don't fit your experience at all, well, that's when we need to start digging a little deeper. So now we're moving beyond the usual suspects to investigate the rarer culprits. Right? What if you don't drink alcohol? Or you're nowhere near perimenopause? This is exactly where a doctor starts to play detective. They start running through a whole list of other possibilities. It's what's known as a differential diagnosis. And the crucial point here is that persistent, unexplained flushing can be a clue to some much rarer conditions. The list includes things like carcinoid tumors, pheochromocytoma, and mast cell activation syndromes. Sounds complicated, I know. Let's break them down. First up are what we can call the endocrine imposters. These are super rare tumors that act like little hormone factories, just pumping out massive amounts of them and causing symptoms that can easily mimic more common conditions. So carcinoid syndrome is caused by neuroendocrine tumors that have often spread to the liver. In these tumors, they basically act like serotonin factories stuck in overdrive, just flooding your entire body with it. And it's that massive surge of serotonin that triggers the flushing. Then there's this thing called a pheochromocytoma. This is a rare tumor, usually found on the adrenal glands, which sit right on top of your kidneys. And its whole deal? It produces these huge, totally uncontrolled bursts of catecholamines. Just think of it as a constant internal adrenaline rush. And this is where the clues really start to matter, where we see the key differences. See, the flush is just one piece of the puzzle. With carcinoid syndrome, all that extra serotonin also tends to cause chronic, watery diarrhea and sometimes even wheezing. But with pheochromocytoma, that adrenaline surge brings along its own classic trio of symptoms. We're talking sky-high blood pressure, a pounding heart, and really severe headaches. The clues that come with the flush are everything. Okay, so we've covered genetics, we've covered hormones, and even these rare tumors. But what if the problem is none of those things? What if it's your body's own internal alarm system just going haywire? And that brings us to mast cell activation syndrome. Now, your mast cells, think of them as your immune system's first responders. They're packed with really powerful chemicals like histamine. And in this condition, these cells are they're hypersensitive. They're easily triggered and just release all their contents at the slightest provocation. And when I say slightest provocation, I mean the list of potential triggers is incredibly broad. We're talking everything from emotional stress and physical exercise to sudden temperature changes, specific foods, or even just friction on your skin. This huge range of triggers is what makes it a really tricky condition to pin down. So, when those mast cells dump their chemical payload, it causes this whole body multi-system reaction. Yeah, you get flushing, but it's often joined by intense itching, hives, maybe some wheezing, GI distress, and even wild swings in your blood pressure. It's a true systemic cascade. Okay, we've looked at the common suspects and the rare imposters. So now, let's put it all together. Let's create a simple guide to finally decode all these signals. All right, think of this as your personal flushing decoder ring. It is all about the patterns. Ask yourself, is the flush triggered only by alcohol? It's almost certainly that genetic variant. Is it happening with night sweats and messing with your sleep? That points to menopause. Is it paired with chronic, watery diarrhea? That's a huge red flag for carcinoid syndrome. High blood pressure and a racing heart? You gotta think pheochromocytoma. Or is it happening with a ton of different triggers, plus you're getting itching and hives? Well, that's pointing right toward mast cell activation. So here's the most important takeaway from all of this. The flush itself is just the headline. The real story is in the context. It's the other symptoms, the specific triggers, the timing. That's what turns a really confusing signal into a much clearer message. Which really leaves us with this one question, right? Is your flush just a harmless false alarm, like getting warm from a hot cup of tea, or is it a fire drill, a real signal that you need to pay closer attention to something more serious? Well, the answer is found by looking at all those other clues. Now, this isn't about self-diagnosing online, okay? It's about empowering yourself. By understanding these patterns, you can walk into your doctor's office and have a much, much more productive conversation. So listen to your body, and I really hope this helps you decode the signals. Thanks so much for joining me.